head over to our Storm here, Bel. What do we got here over the past week?
On May 6th, the Storm visited. Actually, that was a home game. Sorry. The Minnesota Lynx visited us, and that was a win for the Storm, 97-74. Our player of the game is Breanna Stewart with 17 points, 3 assists, and 8 rebounds. Now, unfortunately, not unfortunately, because I was glad to be there, but I was at a Mariners game and I missed this one. So, what did you see?
Seattle looked really good. I mean, they looked how we hoped that I know that I've talked about concerns with the bench, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the starters, the big three, looked good. I mean, Stewie got out to a difficult start. She went 2 for 10 from the field to begin the game, really, and then started to turn it on. Jewell Loyd had a third quarter that looked like Jewell Loyd last year, and it looks like she's going to continue to build off of last season, and that will be huge, right? Sue Bird had her most assists in a game with 9 since, I think, June 4th of last year.
Wow.
So, I mean, the big three was efficient. Sylvia Fowles, who's playing her last year for Minnesota in the league, and Ariel Powers got out. I think they scored 14 and 12 respectively in the first half, and then those two only combined for 4 points the rest of the game. So the defense was able to lock down. But I think most impressive was the bench. The bench played incredible. Jontel Lavender played well off the bench. Breanna January playing her last year as well, coming from Spokane, or living in Spokane. She's from Spokane. Had led the team with plus-minus, with 21 plus-minus. She didn't score that many points, but her defensive effort was really great.
Yeah.
Gabby Williams showed great athleticism. And there's another defensive piece that looks great. That third quarter was really where it happened, though. The Storm were hitting 3 and after 3 after 3, playing great defense. And then Minnesota just got it kind of washed away. I think the Storm led by like 20. I think they led it by 30 at one point. And that was after being tied at the half. So, it looked like great bench, great depth. Their veterans on the bench really helped out. And then the big three played well. And that's kind of what you want from this team this year. And they showed out, and it was really great to have that sort of atmosphere back in Seattle, back in the shadow of, well, not the shadow, back in the former Key Arena, now Climate Pledge Arena. It was pretty good. It was a good night.
I know you mentioned the bench, and I want to make sure to mention that Epiphany Prince almost went near perfect from field goal range. She was 5 of 6 and had 13 points to help in that Storm win. So I thought that was big. And
even in this Aces game, I know that's a loss, and we'll get to that in a second. But Pip played great. I'll be honest, I was a little bit cautious of Pip. Last year, there were some games I thought she could have added more, but to start the season, she's on fire. And that's what you're going to need. You're going to need scoring from your bench. And she's been able to bring that. But that Aces game.
Moving on. Moving on to that Aces game. Yesterday, May 8th, they did visit the Las Vegas Aces, and that was an unfortunate loss, 74-85. Again, our player of the game is Breanna Stewart with 21 points, 2 assists, 8 rebounds. And I'm going to leave out those other little tidbits because that adds to a spoiler later.
Gotcha. Yep.
So, again, she did great. I didn't get to catch most of the game, but I did see at the end there, I think it was like a 7-point game, and Stewie took a 3 and unfortunately missed it. That I think would have brought them within 4. But I mean, what was the factor in that one? Did Kelsey Plum just come in and show out?
Asia Wilson, former MVP, dominated. There's the Aces starters, probably maybe the best unit of 5 in a starting lineup in the league, dominated our starters, scoring wise. Our bench outscored the Aces bench by far, but the starters for the Aces they were locked down, and they did great. Asia Wilson, the Aces dominated us in the paint, and that's maybe where you miss a Mercedes Russell, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of a big factor. And I mean, the Aces are going to be a good team. I'd say that the 2 teams I'm worried about the most are the Aces and maybe the Mercury. And in the first game of the season, the Aces dominated the Mercury. Maybe I'd put Chicago in there.
Yeah, I'd definitely throw Chicago in there.
Yeah, my apologies. So I don't know. The Aces, Storm defeated them in 2020 for the title. And I mean, that was a group with a lot of talent. So it's going to be really interesting to see this season how it plays out. I believe in the 3 games that we played the Aces last year, the Aces won 2 of 3. So this is another benchmark of if you want to be successful this season, you got to beat Las Vegas.
And Jewell, I think, had similar stats to her first game there. So she showed up for the second game as well. But you mentioned Mercedes Russell, and we have a bit more news there with some injury news. Mercedes Russell is out 3 to 5 weeks with that non-basketball injury. No details on again what happened, and a more specific return date will be provided when available. So very vague still. We're hoping to get something more solidified here, something that gives us an idea as to when she will join that lineup. So moving on to some team notes here, there were some roster moves. On May 4th, Seattle waived Evina Westbrook. And I meant to text you on this one because I know that she was your Seattle Star of the Week last week. And it was completely surprising to me seeing how well she did in that week, that she was your Star of the Week.
You know what's wild about this? This announcement came shortly after I was at Storm practice. So I went to Storm practice that morning, talked to Jontel Lavender. She's great. I saw that was
a different day.
Yeah, that was the morning of the game. That was a shoot around. But I saw Westbrook, I saw Burke, I saw Kiki, Herbert Harrigan, and they were all there. Yep. And then I was heading over to start heading down towards the Lumen Field for the CONCACAF Champions League final game that night. And bing, Storm PR tweets. I'm like, wow. So it's we talked about, league expansion. We talked about roster growth. We talked about the salary cap. And these are all things that players around the league have talked about because of all these cuts. And to see someone like Westbrook get cut after the performance that she had in the preseason, it's tough. But also considering that the depth you've got at the guard position, and Epiphany Prince, someone that people have talked about cutting in for Westbrook, has showed out. So I mean, it's tough, but there is so much urgency to win a title this year where I understand it.
They have to make the tough decisions.
It still sucks though. It still sucks. So no words.
Yeah. And just to add to, like you said, so many of the WNBA players mentioning how much this league needs expansion because these great players are just not making it. There's first round draft picks that are being waived and just not making the roster. So there are several calls out for an expansion in the league, and that comes from even other sports areas too. So the NBA players, so many people are just seeing how talented these women are and calling for an expansion. So hopefully they're able to figure something out here. Moving on May 5th, the team released their opening day roster. That would be for guards, Sue Bird, Jewell Loyd, Epiphany Prince, Breanna January, Jade Melbourne. For forwards, we had Brianna Stewart, Stephanie Talbot, Rishonda Gray, and Gabby Williams. Centers, Mercedes Russell, Ezzie Magbegor, and Jontel Lavender. And I thought this was interesting, so I threw it on here. The Storm have done this before, and they're continuing, but they've also added some things here. So they're doing Force for Change. Storm Stats will raise money for organizations benefiting local BIPOC youth. So every free throw is 2,000 airline miles from Alaska to the Technology Access Foundation. Every 50 assists is $1,000 from BCU to Young Women Empowered. Every three-pointer is $50 from Carter Subaru to Treehouse. Every block is $70 from Coinbase towards TechBridge. This was one of the new additions. And every rebound is $10 from Denali AI to communities in school. So making a change within their local community, which is always admirable. On May 9th, Sue Bird and Brianna Stewart will be featured in the 2022 Sports Illustrated edition, dropping May 19th. And again, if you are wanting a sneak peek, then go follow Circling Seattle Sports because Chuck made sure to get that to you guys.
Yep. Kind of cool note. I mean, that they're doing that with 5 WNBA players to really kind of mark the league's evolution.
Yeah.
I think it was Nneka Agwumike, obviously Sue Bird, Brianna Stewart, I think Dee Richards, and there's somebody else I'm forgetting. I'm terribly sorry. But I mean, cool note there to see them highlight these women in that regard. And I think the kind of the main point was, the evolution of the WNBA. So cool for the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition to do that. But
yeah, cool for the WNBA and then cool for women in general, just to see that. I mean, Sue Bird is muscular and she looks great. And just knowing that as a woman, you can have a body like that or a physique like that and make it onto the Sports Illustrated magazine. It's great. So, moving on to league notes here, United States to discuss bringing Griner home. So the State Department is ready to get involved after WNBA star is reclassified as wrongfully detained by Russia. Previously, the U.S. was set to let the case play itself out, and it doesn't really feel like there's been updates. So this is kind of, but not really an update, but it's good to see that we're finally getting involved in trying to bring her home.
No, I think you put it on the spot.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, all the courts within the league have the Brittany Griner decal, which includes her number 42. I know that the league, we talked about the shoe drive that they're doing, and that happens on this game on the 14th. But it's interesting. A lot of the players talked about, the seeing that logo on the court, and just kind of thinking about BG. So, I mean, I'm glad that there's some movement, but again, it's like, hey, man, this should be happening already, so.
And back to the roster cuts and just what's going on in the WNBA. Again, stars such as Breanna Stewart have also spoken up about it and just the need for the league to grow and increase roster sizes and salary caps. So let's hope that they can get what they deserve and some of these talented players can make it into the league. Chicago will be the host city of WNBA All-Star Week 2022. AT&T All-Star Game set for Sunday, July 10th on ABC. And the league will introduce a new 2-day WNBA live event outdoors at Chicago's McCormick Place. Our Storm standings, our record currently sits at 1-1 with 1 win and 1 loss. They are third in the Western Conference. And looking ahead, they will be at the Phoenix Mercury on the 11th with a 7 p.m. game, and on the 14th they will be back home versus the Phoenix Mercury, and that's a 12 p.m. game on a Saturday.